لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك له.
The Kaaba that stands in Mecca is an extremely holy site in Islam. However, some people have attributed foreign meanings to it, causing the significance of the sacred structure to contradict some Christian beliefs. According to the opinions of some scholars, are the foundations of this structure really contrary to God's will? What are some beliefs that people have about it? Join us as we uncover the warnings of Jesus about Kaaba, which no one has seen until now. Number 1. What exactly does the Kaaba contain? From ancient historical times down to today, one thing that has served as a source of inspiration, knowledge, and hope is the Bible for Christians and the Qur'an for Muslims. They serve as a source of guidance, containing prophecies meant to direct our paths. One such prophecy is found in Revelations 13:14. It warns of a false prophet who will greatly deceive people by creating the image of a beast. But it goes even further than mere deceit, because the people will be asked to do something extremely profane. They will be asked to worship the image in honor of the beast. The bizarre image holds a rather deep symbolism, as it can mislead many people in their religious pursuits. Some scholars are already positing that the image of a beast is already present in Mecca, along with a strange black stone. The black stone is placed in a corner of the Kaaba, and it is called Hajar al-Aswad. In the opinion of skeptics, it is a very unsettling revelation if indeed the sacred structure contains something that has led many people astray. Number 2, the significance of the sacred Kaaba. The Kaaba, an iconic structure known in Islam as the House of God, holds great significance in Islam. It is in the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. It is a focal point for all Muslims worldwide during the annual Hajj pilgrimage. The Kaaba is so sacred that only a handful of people have seen it or have the slightest idea of its contents. The exterior of the Kaaba wasn't just designed, but was meticulously done to meet the precise cardinal directions, and it is made of granite, giving it a sturdy, ageless appearance. Also, the doors were made of pure, solid gold. It is covered with a cloth that historically originated in Egypt. The fabric, called kiswa, with Qur'an verses in Arabic inscribed onto it, would accompany a group of pilgrims during the Hajj pilgrimage. The architecture of the Kaaba is an accurate testament to the expertise and craftsmanship of the many generations that have contributed to its building and renovations over the centuries. Though the Kaaba may be a physical structure, it holds deep spiritual and historical significance. Muslims believe it was originally built by the prophet Ibrahim, whom Christians know as Abraham, and his son Ismail, known in Christianity as Ishmael. It was dedicated as a place of worship to Allah, the true God. The structure has been renovated and reconstructed over the centuries by different people, and each renovation left a mark on it, creating the Kaaba that we see today. The sacred precinct surrounding the structure is called Haram. It gives one peace and devotion when one steps into it. One of the principal rituals associated with the Kaaba is the tawaf. When pilgrims converge, they perform this ritual by walking 7 times around the sacred structure in a counterclockwise direction. It is a practice that symbolizes unity and submission to God. Tawaf holds great spiritual significance in Islam. It symbolizes unity and equality for all believers, regardless of their background or ethnicity, as they all come together in a harmonious procession. Also, moving in a circular motion around the Kaaba symbolizes the continuous circle of life and the eternal nature of God's presence. With each circular movement, the pilgrims express their devotion. One other thing Muslims don't joke with is prayer. When performing their daily prayers, regardless of their geographical location, they always face the direction of the Kaaba. This act also symbolizes the unity of the Muslim community worldwide. It shows that they worship in synchronization, regardless of where they are. It serves as a reminder of the very vital role that the Kaaba plays in Islam and the spiritual lives of all Muslims. Aside from Hajj, the major pilgrimage in the Islamic month of Dhu al-Hijjah, there is also the Umrah, a non-mandatory pilgrimage that can be taken any time of the year. The Kaaba has immense significance in these two pilgrimages. One of the key rituals during Hajj is Sa'i, which involves walking between the hills of Safa and Marwa. It commemorates the story of Hajar, the wife of Prophet Ibrahim, who ran between the hills searching for water for Ismail, her son. Sa'i symbolizes perseverance, faith, and reliance on God's mercy. It reminds pilgrims of the importance of trusting God in all situations. Another important thing is the Zamzam water sourced from the Zamzam well, which is considered to be of great spiritual value. Pilgrims sip the water from the well or pour it over themselves. This is called istilam. The act signifies purification and the seeking of divine blessings. People drink the water because it is believed to have healing properties and is a source of spiritual and physical nourishment. In the first 3 rounds of tawaf, some people engage in a brisk walking movement called ramal. The act is believed to be an imitation of Hajar's enthusiastic pace when she was searching for water between Safa and Marwa. Ramal represents the energetic and dedicated approach that Muslims use in their worship. The Kaaba is also an extremely important place for those taking part in the itikaf. This refers to the seclusion of some people within a mosque to dedicate themselves to worship and the seeking of spiritual solitude. This act is usually performed by many pilgrims during the last 10 days of Ramadan. They choose to do this in the Grand Mosque, especially in the area surrounding the Kaaba. Itikaf allows individuals to detach themselves from worldly distractions and to immerse themselves in prayers and supplication. Number 3. Do Muslims really worship the Kaaba and the Black Stone? When you see the videos of the masses of fervent Muslims prostrating in front of and clamoring to touch the Kaaba, it is easy to believe that they regard it as an object of worship and adoration. Nothing could be further from the truth. All Muslims understand clearly that the Kaaba has no power to affect their lives now or in the hereafter. According to Muslims, they do not worship the Black Stone. They regard the stone as a created thing. The most fundamental principle of Islam is that nothing or no one is to be worshipped. Because Muslims kiss that stone, some observers hastily conclude that Muslims worship it. A kiss, however, is not an act of worship unless it is accompanied by an intention to worship Allah, the one true God. Also, the act of fixing a stone to mark a place of worship is as old as history. In the Bible, we are told that Jacob, on whom be peace, fixed a stone at a place where he saw a vision. He poured oil on it and called it Bethel, interpreted to mean the house of God as seen in Genesis 28:18. But that wasn't the only time he did this again upon God's instruction in Genesis 35:1, 14, and 15. No one should therefore understand from this that God instructed Jacob to worship the stone. The truth of the matter is that Muslims only worship God, Allah, alone, and nothing else besides. Nothing or no one else has the right to worship but Him. They do not want to partner with others, and they do not worship statues, objects, or other inanimate things in this world. Certainly, Muslims are encouraged to touch these sacred spots on the east and west corners of the Kaaba. They are allowed to do this because it was a practice of Prophet Muhammad to touch and kiss them, together with the belief that the Black Stone will intercede for them on the Day of Judgment. However, they do feel the urge to get up close and touch the Kaaba, but it is only out of curiosity and the mere novelty that they do so. Amidst so many dark moments, the Kaaba stands out as a beacon of hope, drawing Muslims worldwide as they seek a more intimate connection with their Maker. But what exactly is the Black Stone, and what does it mean? Number 4. The significance of the Black Stone. Also known as Al-Hajjah, the Black Stone is another cultural point of activity around the Kaaba. It is in the eastern corner of the Kaaba and holds great relevance in Islam, especially during the pilgrimage. The sacredness of the stone is further boosted by the fact that kissing it during tawaf is considered a highly virtuous act. There are a variety of theories regarding the origin of the Black Stone. Bit is generally believed to be a blessing. It is believed that the stone directly descended from heaven and thus holds spiritual blessings. So you kiss the stone and seek God's mercy and blessings. Another Islamic tradition holds that the black stone fell from Jannah to show Adam and Eve where to build an altar, which became the first temple on earth. Muslims believe that the stone was originally pure and dazzling white, but has since turned black, all because of the sins of the people who touch it. Adam's altar and the stone were said to have been lost and forgotten during Noah's flood. Prophet Ibrahim was said to have found the black stone at the original spot where Adam's altar once stood when an angel called Jibrail revealed it to him. Ibrahim ordered his son Ismail, who in Muslim belief is an ancestor of Muhammad, to build a new temple, the modern-day Kaaba, into which the stone was to be embedded. Again, another tradition holds that the black stone was originally an angel placed by God in the Garden of Eden to stand guard over Adam. The angel was absent when Adam ate the forbidden fruit and was punished by being turned into a jewel, the black stone. God then granted it the power of speech and placed it at the top of Abu Qubais, a mountain in the historic Khorasan region, before moving it to Mecca. When Ibrahim took the black stone from Abu Qubais to construct the Kaaba, the mountain asked Ibrahim to intercede with God so that it would not be returned to Khorasan and would stay in Mecca. Another tradition holds that an angel from heaven brought it down to earth. The religious activities surrounding the Kaaba form a tapestry of devotion, unity, and spiritual connection for Muslims from all walks of life. From the circular movements to the prayers done while facing the structure, Muslims are reminded of the shared faith and the role of the Kaaba in people's lives. According to some Islamic scholars, the black stone was the same stone that Islamic tradition describes as having greeted Muhammad before his prophethood. This led to the age-long debate about whether the black stone's greeting was actual speech or simply a sound, and also whether the stone was a living creature or an inanimate object. Whichever was the case, the main thing is that the stone was held to be an irrefutable symbol of prophethood. A hadith records that, when the second Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab came to kiss the stone, he said in front of every person present that he had no doubt, that he knew the stone was just a stone and nothing more than that, and that it could neither bring harm nor benefit to anyone. He said further that, if he had not seen Allah's messenger, Muhammad, kissing the stone, he would not have kissed it. It is recorded in the hadith collection Kanz al-Umal that upon hearing what Umar said, Ali responded to him that a stone known as Hajar Aswad can indeed benefit people and equally harm people. Allah says in the Qur'an that He created human beings from the progeny of Adam, made them witness over themselves, and asked them the question, "Am I not your creator?" Upon hearing this overly important question, all of them confirmed it, and thus Allah wrote this confirmation. And this stone has a pair of eyes, ears, and a tongue, and it opened its mouth upon the order of Allah, who put that confirmation in it, and ordered to witness it to all those worshippers who come for Hajj. In 1911, Muhammad Labib al-Batanuni commented in his writing on the practice that the pre-Islamic practice of venerating stones, including the black stone, arose not because such stones are sacred for their own sake, but because of their relation to something holy and respected. The Islamic scholar from India, Muhammad Hamidullah, summed up the meaning of the black stone. Several literalist views of the black stone have emerged in recent years. A hadith is usually taken as allegorical, but a small minority accept it as literally true. The hadith asserts that the stone will appear on the day of judgment with eyes to see and a tongue to speak, and give evidence in favor of all who kissed it in true devotion, but speak out against whoever indulged in gossip or profane conversations during his circumambulation of the Kaaba. However, some people still lack an accurate understanding of what the Kaaba contains and still believe that the Messiah resides within it, thereby praying even more fervently when around the sacred structure. Jesus issued a warning, but no one saw it, which has been unnoticed for centuries. Number 5. Who is the Antichrist in Christian theology? We must consider the Antichrist before we can go into details about Jesus' consideration of the Antichrist. The Antichrist has long been a hot topic in Christian debate. People have been trying to identify who the Antichrist is and understand the signs of his arrival. One unsettling theory has created a connection between the Antichrist and the Kaaba. The theory may spark curiosity and maybe even hostility, which would end up brewing even more conflict. As a result, it is wise to approach the topic with discernment and consider the implications that it may have. To understand the alleged link between the Antichrist and the Kaaba, we must be very careful and consider the eschatological significance of the Antichrist in Christian theology. In Christian eschatology, the Antichrist is depicted as a leader with great charisma, who will emerge in the end and have great power and influence. According to the Bible, this figure will perform signs and wonders, but its miracles are meant to deceive people, including the elect. Those who support the theory think that the Antichrist would use the Kaaba, which is the central point in Islam, as a tool of deception to lead people astray and establish a false religion. But bear in mind that it is merely the opinion of some people. They claim that the pilgrimage known as Hajj will be used to enforce worship and make people swear loyalty to the Antichrist. However, it is important to approach this theory with extreme caution, since the Bible does not say anything like that. The Kaaba holds immense religious significance in Islam. As such, it is highly important to respect the beliefs and practices of other people's faith without quickly drawing a connecting line between them and the Antichrist. Thus, what Christianity teaches is the importance of love and respectful dialogue among people of different faiths. There's some information contained in the Bible about the Antichrist. It is important to avoid fostering a spirit of fear in people based on unfounded claims or beliefs. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul warns about the coming of the lawless man who will deceive many, but this man's identity and exact location are yet to be revealed. As such, it is extremely unpleasant when some people begin to point fingers at a particular religion about something as big as the Antichrist. With the arrival of the Antichrist, the concept of lawlessness refers to a complete disregard for God's ethical standards. It doesn't imply the absence of laws, the absence of God's law. Love, which entails loving God and other persons as much as oneself. When lawlessness reigns, the prevalent circumstance is that of the strong exploiting the weak. This is in contradiction to God's purpose of creation, and serves as a signal for the arrival of the Antichrist. The Antichrist, also known as the Beast, is described as a very deceitful entity whose prowess in deceiving people is unmatched. This wicked deception would lead to the downfall of many who would accept the teachings of the false prophet. God, in His mercy, will send a deluding influence to those who reject the teachings of truth and embrace wickedness, just as He dealt with Pharaoh in the past. Those who choose to follow the Antichrist for their own self-preservation will ultimately perish. On the other hand, those who reject the ways of the Antichrist and choose to lose their lives at the hands of the Antichrist will be saved. Before the Antichrist can be welcomed with wide open arms by the world, a change in society's mentality must first take place. Paul uses this word to predict a rebellion or mutiny against God in the last days. The text does not imply that this mutiny will occur within the church. Rather, it seems to point to a change in society's attitude toward God. Paul describes a time when society's attitude toward God and holy things will become mutinous. Once this anti-God and anti-godliness mentality pervades society, Paul describes a time when society's attitude toward God and holy things will become mutinous. Once this anti-God and anti-godliness mentality pervades society, the world will be primed and prepared to receive this man whom Paul calls that man of sin. Then Paul prophesies that the Antichrist will sit in the very place of God, in the temple. It is sometimes used to refer to the innermost part of the temple and may be interpreted as the Holy of Holies. Based on this verse, many scholars think that the Antichrist will enter a rebuilt temple in Jerusalem, where he will go into the Holy of Holies and decree himself to be God incarnate. The Antichrist is depicted in Revelations as a beast rising from the sea. However, the book needs to pinpoint the exact identity of the Antichrist, so some Christian scholars insist that its identity should be wildly speculative. Instead, the book conveys deep spiritual truths and encourages believers to remain faithful despite adversity. When Christians engage in speculations about the identity of the Antichrist, it causes them to deviate from the true essence of the Christian faith, which is to love God and humanity. Instead of focusing on theories that can breed gears and suspicion of another religion, Christians are called to embrace truth and unity. In the midst of all these turmoils and confusion, God sends us signs to look out for, including the arrival of the Antichrist. However, our focus should not solely be on the Antichrist or the end time, as that would only cause us to lose focus on God and His teachings, which are supposed to be our primary focus. One of the fundamental principles of the Bible is faith, which requires believing in something greater than ourselves and trusting the unseen and the unknown. Through faith, we can navigate the treacherous world of deception and remain steadfast in our devotion to the one true God. Number 6. What are some religious beliefs about the end time? Since the beginning of ancient civilization, people have been thinking about one major thing that is expected to happen: the end of the world. As a result, the planet's major religions have formulated elaborate viewpoints to substantiate their views on the topic. In Christianity, the Bible in the book of Revelation contains details of Armageddon, the final battle on Earth between the forces of God and Satan. The major religions on the planet each have their own beliefs about the end of the world and how it would happen, as well as the signs that would lead to this significant event, which is largely seen as the triumph of good over evil and Judgment Day. In Christianity, the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible's New Testament, makes mention of Armageddon, believed to be the final battle on Earth, where the forces of Satan will be crushed by the forces of God. The word Armageddon itself is believed by Christian scholars to have come from the Hebrew word for Mount of Megiddo. Located in present-day Israel, Megiddo is an ancient, strategically positioned city and was the site of a number of battles. Some Christians interpret the book of Revelation as a roadmap that lays out exactly how the world will end. They are of the opinion that Judgment Day will take place on Armageddon, and that Jesus will save the true believers, while non-believers left behind will face enormous suffering. In Islam, the end of the world is referred to as the hour, and it involves Jesus, known in Islam as Isa, returning to Damascus to slay an Antichrist who has put the planet in peril. With the Antichrist out of the picture, a period of perfect harmony will then ensue. Jesus will later die a natural death, which will lead to a time of destruction, and then, directly, to the hour. In Judaism, there is no word for Armageddon, but there are references in the Hebrew Bible to events that could be compared with Armageddon, including the Day of the Lord, in which God causes death and destruction to people who deserve to be punished, and the War of Gog and Magog, in which Israel and its God fight their enemies, rather than an Antichrist. Also, in Hinduism, there is the story of the god Vishnu, who will be coming back in the last cycle of time as a figure called Kulk, riding a white horse, carrying a sword that looks like a comet, and destroying the forces of evil. In some Buddhist prophecies, Shambhala is the equivalent of Armageddon, in which good triumphs over evil. However, instead of the planet being destroyed, it is rather restored so people can pursue enlightenment. Despite the many theories and religious interpretations, the only thing that's certain about the end of the world is that no one can know for sure what will happen. And until that day arrives, if it does arrive, people will no doubt continue to speculate endlessly about when it will all be over. In the olden days, people followed false gods and fell for deceit. To this day, the allure of false gods is still prevalent, and people tend to idolize things. For example, in the Kaaba, which Muslims revere, there's a danger of idolizing instead of worshiping Allah. In the same vein, Christians are also in danger of idolizing their priests and popes if they're not careful. The Qur'an in Surah Al-Baqarah highlights the importance of worshiping Allah alone and not placing too much emphasis on physical structures. Both the Holy Bible and the Qur'an warn believers to beware of being led astray. ADs, with many ancient biblical prophecies and eerie events triggering fear and widespread terror, people need tough skin to withstand the shock of some revelations. Another thing that can withstand shocks no matter the intensity is our tough phone cases, which are on sale this year. Take advantage of this opportunity. Grab yours by clicking on the screen or the first link in the description. What are your thoughts about these revelations? Thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe to see more videos.